Elijah unexpectedly travels back to the day when the virus broke out. Confronted with his zombified roommate and the perilous situation of the roommate's girlfriend, he decides to take action. In this post-apocalyptic world, he vows to become the strongest man and create an incredibly secure refuge. The story begins with Elijah's rebirth as he discovers the opportunity to change the future. He becomes close companions with his roommate Bella and her husband Alexander. However, when Alexander is infected and turns into a zombie, Elijah must act decisively to protect himself and Bella. Elijah awakens to a supernatural ability called the Seed of Consciousness, which allows him to control zombies, becoming his weapon for survival. He uses this power to strengthen himself continuously and seek the path of survival. However, his relationship with Bella starts to undergo subtle changes, forcing him to confront emotional challenges. Chapter 1: Rebirth, Apocalypse, Rebirth. Beauty surround me, boom! The violent explosion reverberated around, shaking the buildings, and the glass emitted a mournful sound. Elijah suddenly woke up, sitting up from the bed. He subconsciously touched his body, intact, and then looked around. The familiar room layout, simple and clean, except for the refrigerator, wardrobe, table, and the bed he was in, there were no other clutter. Darn, was it a dream? Or have I been reborn? Not far away from him, a commercial building was emitting billowing smoke, with the wreckage of an airplane hanging on it. That was the source of the explosion just now. Plane crash. Exactly the same. I really reincarnated. Although incredulous, Elijah breathed a sigh of relief. Anyway, being alive was the greatest luck. But soon he frowned again. From the timing, today was the first day of the zombie virus outbreak, and the exploding plane was the signal. He suspected that the pilot was infected with the zombie virus, leading to the plane crash. And on this day, before Elijah could think further, a voice of extreme panic suddenly rang out. "Help! Help me!" Elijah looked down following the sound and saw a woman running frantically, shouting as she ran. And behind her, 3 figures chased after her like mad dogs. One of them Elijah recognized, his downstairs neighbor, a stooped old lady, normally panting after a few steps, but now she was more agile than an athlete. The woman exerted all her strength to try to shake off the 3 behind her, but suddenly a figure slanted from the side and tackled her to the ground. This figure opened its mouth wide and bit the woman's neck fiercely. Blood gushed instantly, staining the person's face with a ghastly appearance. Ah! The woman's miserable scream echoed through the building. At this moment, the 3 figures chasing behind also arrived instantly, pouncing on the woman and tearing at her like wild beasts. Ugh! Ah! The woman's screams gradually faded, and her body soon stopped struggling. Only a pool of blood slowly overflowed from under the 4 figures. The neighborhood has started too. Elijah sighed, muttering to himself. It would have been better if he had reincarnated a bit earlier, so he could also go and buy some supplies. For now, he could only hide at home. Otherwise, if he got involved because of some idiot, it would be too much of a loss. But speaking of idiots, bang, bang, bang. A knock on the door interrupted Elijah's thoughts. "Elijah, are you there?" A somewhat anxious female voice came through. Immediately, an image of a figure wearing shorts and a short-sleeved shirt, revealing slender white legs, popped into Elijah's mind. Bella is the wife of a couple who shares the apartment with Elijah. She and her husband just arrived in the city to make a living. To save on rent, Elijah rented the master bedroom to the couple through a referral. Here she comes. Elijah's heart skipped a beat, knowing he was about to face a crisis. But it wasn't this woman, it was her idiot husband. Elijah remained composed as he opened the bedroom door, and sure enough, Bella was standing outside. Her face was adorned with delicate makeup, wearing a light green short-sleeved shirt that was slightly translucent, revealing a glimpse of the white bra inside. Below was a black waist cinching skirt, exposing her smooth legs, slender and well-proportioned. One foot was clad in slippers, while the other wore a white low-heeled flat shoe. It was evident from her attire that she was about to go out, in the midst of changing shoes when the sudden situation interrupted her. "Elijah, did you see them too? Those monsters." At this moment, she looked anxious, slightly frightened, and somewhat lost. "Yes, I saw them too. The ones downstairs are zombies." Yes, they're zombies, just like in the movies." Bella found a way to vent her fear. "What's going on? What should we do?" "I don't know, but we can't go out now. The zombies outside are too dangerous." Thinking of the zombies downstairs and the woman's tragic situation, Bella's face turned pale, but the next moment she became anxious again. "My husband just went out. He won't be in danger, right?" "No, I have to call him." She hurriedly walked to the living room, took out her phone from her bag, but the next moment she froze in place. "No signal? How is there no signal?" Ignoring her astonishment, Elijah shifted his gaze away from her slender legs and started staring at the anti-theft door outside the foyer. Just then, bang! The sound of the anti-theft door being forcefully pulled open, hitting the wall and rebounding, startled Bella, but Elijah had anticipated it and calmly watched as the man at the door, breathing heavily, slammed the door shut. "Honey, you're back. That's great. Are you okay?" Bella ran up and supported her husband. "I'm fine, Bella. You're fine too. That's great." Alexander hugged Bella excitedly. "I was just leaving the neighborhood when I got stuck on the road. I saw many people turning into zombies, so I hurried back. That's too dangerous, but fortunately you're back safely." Bella's face was filled with fear after the fact. Elijah closed the door, ignoring the couple, and began to search for things, preparing himself. Everything that had happened up to now was exactly the same as in his previous life. If nothing had changed, then that idiot Alexander must have been bitten by the zombies already. In his previous life, Bella discovered the bite marks on Alexander while he was changing clothes and came to Elijah in fear to confirm if he would turn into a zombie because of it. What followed was Alexander's sudden attack on them. Although Elijah eventually killed Alexander, both he and Bella were subsequently scratched and bitten. In despair and rage, Elijah vented his anger on Bella, only to find out later that he managed to resist the transformation and even awaken superpowers by chance. However, Bella unfortunately turned into a zombie and was controlled by his superpowers. Thinking of superpowers, Elijah subconsciously urged them, and a familiar energy immediately flowed through his body. Elijah's face lit up with joy. "My superpowers have awakened ahead of time." Chapter 2. Seed of Consciousness. Elijah's awakened superpower is called the Seed of Consciousness. Its function is to parasitize other organisms through a medium and forcibly control them. This ability sounds very powerful, akin to the puppeteers in the anime Naruto or the devil fruit power of Doflamingo in One Piece. If you were to implant the Seed of Consciousness into the body of a stranger, wouldn't he be able to do as he pleased? The ideal is lofty, but reality is harsh. In fact, until his death in his previous life, Elijah could only control zombies. The reason is that his control ability is achieved through suggestion and command using the Seed of Consciousness. Zombies themselves lack consciousness, so he can fully control them. However, animals and humans cannot be controlled as they possess their own independent consciousness, especially humans. His Seed of Consciousness cannot overpower the consciousness of living beings, which leads to control failure. But it's not entirely ineffective. He can subconsciously suggest or hypnotize those implanted with the Seed of Consciousness, making them harbor goodwill, affection, or even loyalty towards him. Moreover, if someone implanted with the Seed of Consciousness suddenly turns into a zombie, they will immediately fall completely under his control. This is what Elijah values most. The reason is simple. The zombie virus is constantly mutating. Humans are the best breeding ground for the virus. The zombie virus spreads, evolves, and mutates within the human population, almost changing every day. The more densely populated an area is, the faster the virus mutates. This also means that even if you survive one wave of the zombie virus, you may not be able to survive the next wave of mutations unless you become an awakened individual like Elijah. People who have awakened superpowers have unusually high resistance to the virus in the air and are almost never infected again after death. The only exception is the virus inside zombies. If an awakened individual is scratched or bitten by a zombie and the virus spreads through the blood, they still face a life-threatening situation. These reasons make it impossible for humans to gather in large numbers anymore, because no one can guarantee that a brother fighting back to back one moment won't suddenly take a bite the next. Elijah's ability completely solves this problem. People implanted with the seed of consciousness, even if they can't resist the mutating zombie virus and suddenly turn, will immediately fall completely under his control and cannot rise up to harm others. Therefore, in the apocalypse, he can freely recruit talents, ensure obedience among his subordinates through subconscious suggestion, and ultimately build his own power, dominating the area. It's just a pity that he had just started to act when he was betrayed during a process seeking advancement in his abilities. Thinking of the person who led him to death amidst the horde of zombies, a cold light flashed in Elijah's eyes. He must make those who have wronged him taste the despair of being torn apart by others. But for now, thinking about these things is useless. The most urgent thing now is to overcome the current difficulties and ensure his own survival. A trace of hostility flashed across Elijah's face. That was the countless times of life and death hovering in the apocalypse for a year, forging Elijah's determination to kill. Now that his abilities had awakened and there were no worries holding him back, then screw it. First, Elijah changed his clothes, swapping into jeans and a combat jacket to prevent scratches and bites from zombies. Then, he wrapped several magazines around his forearms with tape. Though the magazines weren't thick, combined with the taped clothing, they could serve as makeshift shields to block zombie bites. Elijah absolutely didn't want to be injured by zombies again if it wasn't necessary. In his previous life, he might have survived a zombie bite and awakened, but this time it wasn't certain. He later learned that the probability of awakening after being bitten by a zombie was less than 1 in 10 million. Now that he had awakened his abilities, he didn't want to gamble on that slim chance again. Once he was properly dressed, Elijah grabbed a long-handled umbrella and strapped a medium-sized warhammer to his waist. Just then, Bella cautiously pushed open the door and walked in. Her face carried a sense of urgency, but also fear of making noise. However, as soon as she saw Elijah's attire, she froze in place at the door. Before she could even think further, she saw Elijah thrusting the umbrella in his right hand towards her like a sword, aiming straight at her. The metal tip of the umbrella came at her at lightning speed, startling Bella into an instinctive scream. In the next moment, crack! The umbrella pierced through flesh. Something burst. Without the expected pain, Bella collapsed to the ground. She subconsciously looked up and saw the black umbrella passing through her body, piercing straight into her husband's eye. His broken eyeball squeezed out, mixing murky liquid with crimson blood flowing continuously from his eye socket. But her husband didn't show any sign of pain, only continuously gnashing his mouth like a hunting beast, emitting low growls, wanting to tear apart his prey in front of him. This gruesome scene frightened Bella into kicking her legs in panic, supporting herself with her hands as she moved away. Elijah was very satisfied with his move. He pushed the umbrella forcefully, sinking the tip deeper into Alexander's head. Slowly, Alexander stopped moving and collapsed to the ground weakly. Elijah then pulled the umbrella out of Alexander's head, splattering a mix of red and white fluid. He didn't stop there, but picked up the warhammer and smashed it onto the back of Alexander's head. Thud! 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 The hammer struck flesh, spraying a mixture of blood and brain matter, looking particularly terrifying. Bella widened her eyes, mouth agape, already petrified. However, Elijah soon stopped his actions, a smile appearing on his face. He threw away the warhammer, not minding the disgust, and reached into the pulpy mess of Alexander's flesh with one hand, then pulled out a crystal-like object resembling a diamond. Wiping the blood and plasma off his hand with tissue, Elijah examined the crystal closely. It was a rhomboid crystal formed by numerous planes, slightly smaller than a fingernail, translucent white, shimmering with a crystal-clear gloss under the sunlight. There was no doubt that this was something that couldn't exist in a human brain. It was a corpse core formed with a small probability by some zombies. Lucky, Elijah happily pocketed it. This thing would be very useful for him. Of course, not for him to consume. Though humans could eat it, most people who did turn into zombies. Only a tiny fraction, by sheer luck, might awaken abilities or advance them. But that probability was smaller than the chance of surviving a zombie bite directly. Elijah wasn't a gambler. He didn't want to bet on that tiny chance. He had a more reliable way. A year after the apocalypse, many things were no longer secret. But now only he knew. He could take advantage of this to quickly strengthen himself and build his own power. But before that, Elijah looked at Bella, her eyes empty, sitting on the ground with her legs spread apart. Chapter 3. So why not start with Bella? In Elijah's previous life, after being bitten by Alexander, it was witnessing scenes like this, coupled with the great terror between life and death, that made him, in his rage, rape Bella. As a result, he survived the zombie transformation, while Bella unfortunately turned into a zombie. But it was also this incident that made him discover his awakened superpower. As for how he managed to implant the seed of consciousness into Bella's body, this brings us to the medium of the seed of consciousness. Currently, Elijah could only confirm 2 mediums, semen and blood. The seed of consciousness could reside in them for a period of time. If it couldn't find a host in time, it would disappear along with the coagulation of the blood. Elijah sighed and shook his head. Naturally, he wouldn't force it anymore. That was too low-level, unnecessary. In the apocalypse, strength was paramount. With strength, one could have food, and some people, for the sake of a meal, could accompany you for a day and come up with various ways to entertain you. However, Elijah soon made a new discovery. Was there water where Bella had fallen? Was she scared? Was what he did just now that scary? He thought back. It seemed quite scary. After all, the apocalypse had just begun, and ordinary people might not be accustomed to his somewhat unconventional way of dealing with corpses. Thinking of corpses, Elijah scratched his head. He definitely couldn't just leave them like this. They needed to be dealt with, or they would spoil sooner or later. It was summer now. Without the virus driving them, corpses would decay quickly, and he was planning to stay here for a while. Elijah sighed and forcefully lifted Alexander's corpse, leaving a bright red blood stain on the ground as he dragged it. Bella finally regained her senses, and, watching this horrifying scene, couldn't help but shiver, her voice trembling as she asked, What are you going to do?" "Of course, throw it away. Do you want to keep it for him to bury?" Bella hesitated, unable to speak. "It's no use thinking about it. It's too hot now, and currently, everyone is struggling to survive. Look outside, there's so many corpses." Elijah hadn't finished speaking when a sudden scream came from the building opposite. "Help! Zombies are eating people." Bella happened to be facing the window and saw a woman pressed against the glass, with a zombie firmly biting her neck from behind. Blood spurted out, staining the glass red. The woman kept pounding the glass with her hands, leaving bloody handprints. Soon, the woman's screams gradually subsided, no longer audible, and her body stopped struggling, slowly sliding down below the glass. Only the blood-red glass remained, telling the story of the tragedy just now. Bella's face turned pale, thinking that if it weren't for Elijah just now, she might have ended up like that too. So, seeing Elijah drag Alexander's body to the window and then push it out with effort, she didn't say anything more. With a bang, the body landed heavily outside the building, the loud noise alerting the nearby zombies, who immediately swarmed towards the body. When they got closer and found that it was a corpse of the same kind, the zombies gradually dispersed. Damn, Elijah was a bit annoyed. His body was too weak. He was exhausted just moving a corpse. Now, if he went out, he might not be able to handle even a few ordinary zombies. It looked like he needed to step up his training. Elijah immediately felt the urgency of time. Awakened individuals had greatly enhanced physical abilities, far surpassing ordinary people. However, this wasn't an immediate change. It required slow accumulation over time. In addition, the only way to enhance it is through targeted training. Increasing abilities only raises the body's limit. Whether one can reach it depends on oneself. Although Elijah's superpower had awakened, his physical fitness was still that of an ordinary person. He needed some time to train and strengthen his body. This was also the main reason why he wanted to hide here for a while. Elijah, Bella trembled as she stood up, about to ask something, but her body suddenly froze. What? Elijah had turned to look at her, noticing a blush on her pale face. And nothing, I'll go back first. Bella lowered her head, unable to look at him, and awkwardly returned to her bedroom. Elijah first glanced at her skirt, then at the spot where she had fallen earlier. She was really scared. Shaking his head, Elijah started cleaning up the floor, clearing away the bloodstains while considering how to deal with Bella. Killing her definitely wasn't appropriate. It would be a waste. Not to mention her appearance. In the apocalypse, every living person was... Well, let's talk about her appearance, especially those legs. Long, straight, white, and slender. They left a deep impression on Elijah, mainly because she liked to wear shorts and wander around the house. Elijah couldn't help but look, if it weren't for the fact that she had a husband. Thinking of this, Elijah glanced at the window with the remaining bloodstains. Oh, they were gone now. Damn, it had to be said, everyone hates perverts. But everyone wants to be one too. Elijah didn't mind this at all. If he did, he wouldn't find many women in the apocalypse. They've all been passed around a few times. For the sake of survival, they didn't care. But in this life, he had strength and power. Naturally, he wouldn't let his women suffer. And having multiple women was quite normal. So why not start with Bella? Elijah made up his mind. But in these matters, using force is not fun. It has to be that the woman is willing. Only then can there be mutual understanding. Elijah wasn't in a hurry. Being alone together in a room, waiting for her to realize the reality, things would naturally fall into place. But for now, the priority was to implant the seed of consciousness in her. Otherwise, if she suddenly turned into a zombie and attacked, even if Elijah could handle it, he couldn't guarantee that he wouldn't get hurt. As the saying goes, a gentleman does not stand under a dangerous wall. Elijah was deep in thought. Bella finally emerged from her room. She seemed to have just taken a shower, with a misty aura enveloping her body, making her skin look even more moist. She was still wearing a short-sleeved shirt on her upper body, but she had changed into hot pants on the lower half, her long legs standing together. Her face, now devoid of makeup, lost a bit of delicacy but gained a hint of laziness, and her semi-dry hair was casually scattered, giving her a charming and refreshing appearance. Elijah glanced at her fair long legs and continued to wipe the floor with a mop. Bella saw that the puddle on the floor had already been washed away and felt relieved. She had struggled in her room just now. She didn't know how to face Elijah. She felt grateful to Elijah for saving her, but she also feared his ruthless methods and worried that he would notice her embarrassment for being scared. But she had too many questions in her mind, and she was also anxious and confused about the future, so she could only come to find Elijah. Elijah. Bella glanced at the reddened puddle on the floor and cautiously approached. What's going on outside? Do you know? She carefully chose her words, not directly asking him about his outfit. Wearing jeans and a windbreaker on such a hot day was very unusual. I have a guess. It's probably the outbreak of the zombie virus, like a movie come to life. Chapter 4. This beam of light was Elijah's spiritual line. The secret of Elijah's rebirth was something he naturally wouldn't share with anyone, but he also knew that his actions were somewhat unusual. You're wondering how I knew your husband would turn into a zombie, right? And why I was prepared in advance. Yes. To be honest, I was just being cautious. When I saw your husband, I thought of the woman being chased downstairs. Bella was led by Elijah's words, thinking of the woman's tragic situation, and her face turned a few shades paler. According to the time your husband entered, he should have been before the woman. This made me suspect, did he also get chased by zombies? Maybe even got scratched or bitten. So when I closed the door, I immediately changed my clothes. Following Elijah's train of thought, Bella quickly understood, amazed at his meticulous thinking. Yes, so when I saw your husband about to attack you, I acted without hesitation. You won't blame me for killing your husband, will you? No, he had already turned into a monster, and I haven't thanked you for saving me. Bella forced a smile. But why did you use a hammer to hit Alexander afterward? She struggled to continue. Remembering that scene, she couldn't help but shiver. I was afraid he wasn't dead enough, so I just made sure. Elijah gave a reason, not wanting to reveal anything about the corpse core. But you're too skilled. Bella couldn't help but curse inwardly. So what should we do next? Bella was a bit nervous. I don't know if you've noticed, but the power is out now. Elijah didn't answer directly, but brought up another matter. Just found out when I was showering, the bathroom light wasn't on, and the hairdryer didn't work. With the current danger outside, I seriously doubt the power will come back on. If it's short-term, it's fine. But if it's long-term, water and gas will also stop. So, we should clean out the refrigerator, check our food supplies, stock up on water, ensure survival. As for the future, we'll have to take it one step at a time. Seeing Elijah calm and methodical, Bella's heart settled a bit. So, should I go clean out the fridge now? Sure, you can start with mine. It's just the two of us here, and we don't need to separate things between us. We'll get through this together. Okay. With that, the two of them began to act separately. Elijah quickly cleaned the floor and filled all the containers in the house with water. Bella collected the food from both refrigerators and sorted it out, distinguishing between items with longer shelf lives and those that needed to be eaten soon. Here, have a drink. It's still cold, perfect for this hot weather. After a busy moment, both of them were sweating, and Elijah handed Bella a bottle of Coke from the fridge. Although it had melted, it was still very cold. Thank you. Bella took a small sip, feeling the refreshing coldness, and then continued drinking. You have a lot of vegetables at home. Unlike me, all I have is instant noodles. Elijah looked at the neatly categorized food and praised Bella. Most of the longer-lasting items were Elijah's food, including instant noodles, canned goods, sausages, pickled vegetables, and other ready-to-eat or pre-made products. He rarely cooked at home and usually ate out or ordered takeout. Occasionally, he would stock up on these foods at home. Bella's house was more normal, with rice, flour, oil, potatoes, tomatoes, celery, eggs, meat, and other staples. But now it's become a problem. Without electricity, it's difficult to store food. If even the gas is cut off, these foods. Bella frowned slightly. When there's a will, there's a way. It's already noon. You should cook first and eat what's not easily preserved. Elijah had a smile on his face. In his vision, a beam of light connected him and Bella, a connection only he could see. This represented that the seed of consciousness had successfully been planted within Bella's body. This beam of light was Elijah's spiritual line. If the other party was a zombie, he could control the zombie with it. If the other party was a human, he could also use it to send suggestive commands, gradually achieving the effect of subconscious hypnosis over time. Currently, Elijah's suggestion was to make Bella feel that he was a trustworthy person. Subconscious hypnosis needed to be gradual. Suggestions like falling in love with me directly wouldn't work and would make the other party suspicious. In his past life, Elijah also underwent long tests to find the right balance and started building a team of explorers loyal to him. But unfortunately, Elijah's expression darkened slightly, but he quickly regained his composure. Putting the blood containing the seed of consciousness in a cola really worked like a charm. With no more worries, it was time to start exercising. Meanwhile, Bella, with her fair long legs, walked into the kitchen to start cooking. While Bella was cooking, Elijah stood in the empty space of the living room and began practicing martial arts. The set of punches he practiced was called the Golden Elephant Body Forging Technique. Although the name sounded low, like a martial art from a second-rate martial arts novel, the effect was indeed remarkable. He spent a considerable amount of money learning it in his past life. It said that it was created by an awakened esper who possessed perception-based superpowers, collecting classic martial arts from several masters, combining them with modern scientific training methods, sensing the dynamics of his own muscles and bones, experimenting and summarizing, refining it to perfection. It was an extremely powerful body forging technique that could push the body of an awakened individual to its limit in the shortest amount of time. Half of Elijah's physique in his past life was accumulated through time, and the other half was improved by this set of martial arts. In the living room, Elijah adjusted his breath first, then slowly assumed his stance, practicing each move methodically. He didn't execute each move quickly. Each action was accompanied by corresponding breathing. If observed closely, it would be noticed that between motion and stillness, the muscles, tendons, and bones in different parts of his body would tighten, contract, and relax with each movement and breath. At the same time, a warm stream flowed through Elijah's body with his movements, giving him a tingling sensation, temporarily forgetting his fatigue. After completing the set of punches, Elijah's body was slightly sweaty, feeling a bit tired, and his hunger noticeably increased. Just then, Bella finished cooking and called him to eat. Elijah looked at the table, where there were 2 dishes, celery stir-fried with meat, stir-fried seasonal vegetables, and steamed rice as the main dish. They sat down. Elijah tasted the food, surprisingly delicious, and he couldn't help but praise her. Even just cooking, she proved to be worth keeping around. Bella smiled slightly and curiously asked, "Were you exercising just now?" Chapter 5. I'm just a little concerned. Yes, indeed. Given the current situation, it's unclear, so we can only strive to strengthen ourselves for self-preservation. When resources become scarce in the future, we'll have the ability to go out and replenish them. Elijah spoke earnestly. Bella hesitated before saying, "But won't exercising consume a lot of food? Shouldn't we save food and wait for rescue?" Normally, that would be the case. But haven't you noticed? There's no cell phone signal at all now. Elijah took a bite of his food before continuing. With communication and power outages, if water and gas are cut off as well, it means the municipal government has completely collapsed. Relying on the government for rescue. Although I believe the military, with its immense strength, should be able to deal with these zombies. When will they come to our rescue? In 5 days? 10 days? Or 20 days? If we keep waiting for rescue and then skimp on food, it will lead to nutritional deficiencies and weakness. When we eventually run out of water and food, we'll be even less capable of dealing with the zombies. Instead of relying on the unknown, I believe in ourselves. Looking at Elijah's confident and determined eyes, Bella couldn't help but feel a slight surge of spirit. "If you're worried about me consuming too much food, we can split it up." "No, there's no need." Bella quickly refused. "I'm just a little concerned. Rest assured, unless I'm certain, I won't act recklessly. After all, nobody wants to die. And if my guess is right, water and gas might be cut off tonight." With the recent outbreak of the zombie virus, many people were still hopeful for rescue. Elijah understood. In his past life, he had waited until the last bullet and grain were depleted before venturing out for survival. But now, since he was reborn, he naturally cherished every day and took each step carefully. The 2 fell silent, focusing on finishing their meal. Every grain of food couldn't be wasted. After finishing their meal, Bella cleaned up the dishes while Elijah found a long-handled umbrella, preparing for precise stabbing. The weak point of zombies was their heads, but the human skull was the hardest part. To eliminate zombies, one had to crush their heads with blunt objects or pierce through their brains with sharp objects, such as poking through the eyes, ears, nose, or mouth. As for cutting off the head with a sword, it was possible but risky. Firstly, swords were short-ranged, making one susceptible to being grabbed by the zombies. Secondly, sword blades were prone to breaking without proper maintenance tools, leading to more trouble than benefit. The best weapon was a firearm, but the noise it produced could easily attract more zombies. So, most people in the apocalypse used steel rods or similar substitutes. Strong individuals could swing them, instantly smashing a zombie's head, while weaker individuals could stab from a distance, although it required more accuracy. Steel rods were also handy for prying open doors and locks, making them essential tools for survivors. Currently, Elijah didn't have a steel rod, so a long-handled umbrella was a decent choice. Its tip was made of metal, not very sharp but sufficient for stabbing zombies. In theory, he had abundant experience, but he couldn't fully inherit it into his current body. Elijah walked to the balcony and hung several bottle caps on the clothesline, about 1 meter and 60 centimeters above the ground, representing the eyes and mouth/nose of a person respectively. He gently moved the rope to make the bottle caps sway, then took a stance with the umbrella, ready to strike. When the timing was right, he tightened his thighs, exerted force from his waist and abdomen, and struck with the umbrella. Clang! The bottle cap made a slight noise as it was hit and swung backward. Elijah nodded in satisfaction. Although there were significant differences between his current body's functions and those of his body a year into the apocalypse, his timing and proficiency remained unchanged. He continued practicing for a while, regaining some of his feeling that his hunger had subsided. Then, he assumed his stance again and continued practicing the golden elephant body forging technique. The golden elephant body forging technique consisted of 4 sets of movements, each with 8 forms. In the morning, he mainly familiarized himself with the movements and corresponding breathing techniques without exerting full force. This time, Elijah put all his effort into each move, trying to mobilize all the bones, tendons, and muscles in his body to move together, coordinating with his breathing, sometimes short, sometimes long, constantly tightening, contracting, and relaxing. After completing a set of movements, he was drenched in sweat, and his body was shaking slightly. Elijah didn't stop there, but continued to practice for a second time. Bella quickly finished washing the dishes. She didn't dare to stay alone in the house. Occasionally, there were 1 or 2 human screams in the neighborhood, filling her heart with fear. Only when she saw Elijah could Bella feel slightly relieved. After all, this man was not afraid of zombies. She sat on the dining room chair, watching Elijah exercise. Although she didn't know what he was practicing, she could sense from Elijah's drenched clothes and constant rolling sweat that it seemed to be very strenuous. After completing the set of movements, Elijah was already having trouble standing. He didn't dare to push himself to continue practicing and sat on the nearby sofa to rest. He wiped the sweat off his body with a towel and drank mineral water to replenish the lost fluids. "You're sweating so much. Just drinking water isn't enough. You need to replenish your salt intake in time." Bella suddenly spoke up. "I overlooked that. Could you give me some salt? I'm feeling a bit drained now," Elijah replied. Bella turned around and fetched the salt from the kitchen, adding a spoonful to his water. Elijah swirled the water and took a few sips. Although the taste wasn't great, he could still tolerate it. "You practiced so hard just now. You'll definitely be sore tomorrow and won't be able to get up," Bella said casually as she sat beside him. "Well, since I have nothing else to do, getting a bit stronger is better. That way, I can deal with zombies more effectively." Elijah replied, changing his posture and stretching his major muscles, grimacing slightly. Seeing this, Bella blurted out instinctively, "How about I give you a massage?" As soon as the words left her mouth, Bella regretted it. Today's sudden turn of events made her subconsciously rely on the man in front of her and want to do something to bring them closer. But a massage was clearly inappropriate. But it was too late to take back her words because Elijah promptly said, "That would be great, thank you." He then flipped over and lay down comfortably. Bella pursed her lips, hesitated for a moment, and finally approached, reaching out her hand to start massaging his leg muscles. Surprisingly, it felt quite comfortable. "Your technique is really good." Elijah felt his muscles gradually loosen, no longer stiff, and his blood circulation improved. Couldn't help but sigh. "My grandmother was better than when she was sick, and I took care of her. I learned from instructional videos specifically for that," Bella replied. Since she had already started massaging, Bella decided to relax, and the two began chatting casually. After massaging his legs, Bella started massaging his waist and back. Because it was so comfortable, Elijah gradually fell asleep. Chapter 6. Bella became even more eager. Bella quietly left at this sight and laid down on the small sofa on the other side, lost in thought. Over half an hour later, Elijah woke up, stretched lazily, and immediately felt refreshed and energized. He could also distinctly feel a slight enhancement in his body. I really want to meet the person who created this set of bodybuilding techniques. The effect is too strong, Elijah muttered to himself. In his past life, he had never experienced enhancement this fast and this noticeable. Maybe my physique was just too weak, so the effects of this technique seemed too good. You're awake? How do you feel? Bella rubbed her eyes. She had just taken a short nap herself, but her sleep was light, and she woke up immediately at any movement or sound. Elijah saw her fair legs curled up on the sofa, forming a beautiful curve, and couldn't help but swallow. Thank you again. There's no soreness in my body anymore, Elijah said, his gaze burning hot as he looked at her. The alluring laziness of the beautiful woman when she first woke up was particularly charming. In his past life, he had encountered many beautiful women, but few could compare to Bella. Especially after enduring the baptism of the apocalypse, most people had rough, dark skin, nothing like her skin, which seemed as if it could squeeze out water. Really? I'm glad I could help. Bella subconsciously hugged a cushion to her chest and shifted her posture slightly, covering up most of her beauty. I'll probably need your help more in the future. I hope you don't mind, Elijah said, moving his gaze away from her, a smile playing on his lips. No problem. There's really nothing else to do. Bella replied slightly unnaturally, having noticed Elijah's slightly heated gaze earlier. I'm a bit hungry. Let's wash some fruit to eat, or we won't be able to last much longer. Elijah patted his stomach. He had just finished lunch not long ago, but he already felt empty inside. Okay. Bella got up, her fair legs carrying her into the kitchen, where she took out half a watermelon and some other fruits. These fruits will spoil quickly without a fridge, so we might as well eat them all. Elijah didn't hesitate, grabbing a spoon and starting to dig in. You should eat too, he said, noticing that Bella was just watching. I'm not hungry. You go ahead. Bella smiled faintly. Elijah didn't press her further, focusing on eating the watermelon seriously. He needed to replenish his energy urgently. After finishing half a watermelon and feeling slightly full, Elijah went to the balcony to practice his spear technique and get a feel for it. Feeling that the food in his stomach had been slightly digested, Elijah resumed practicing the body forging technique. The greatest motivation for persistence in any endeavor lies in the most tangible rewards. The enhancement of his body filled Elijah with determination. This time he practiced 3 times and began to feel a slight tremor in his body. It was much stronger than at noon. After gulping down some water and eating some fruit, Elijah rested for a dozen minutes before gritting his teeth and continuing his training. He went through the golden elephant body forging technique 3 more times. By the 3rd time, he distinctly felt that his body couldn't even maintain its breath, and the last few movements nearly became distorted. Unable to endure the soreness any longer, Elijah collapsed onto the sofa, drenched in sweat, his muscles sore and weak. Bella, who had been busy in the kitchen, came out with a large bowl of noodles. Elijah, famished, immediately accepted it and started eating heartily. It's delicious, he praised after a few bites. The soup was made with eggs, tomatoes, and cucumbers. The noodles were soft and springy, cooked just right, and sprinkled with some spring onions and sesame oil. The aroma was rich, the saltiness just right, replenishing his lost fluids and hunger perfectly. After finishing the large bowl of noodles, Elijah finally felt relieved. He handed the bowl and chopsticks to Bella and lay on the sofa, not moving anymore. Let me give you a massage again. Bella, having washed the dishes, stepped forward voluntarily. Since they'd already done it once, the 2nd time didn't matter. Thank you. Elijah smiled awkwardly. This time, she started with his front. Elijah squinted his eyes, feeling a fragrance wafting into his nose. He stared openly at Bella. Bent over as she was, the Earth's gravity made her upper body particularly eye-catching. Bella seemed to sense something, her body tensing slightly, but she continued massaging soon after. If Elijah hadn't been observant, he almost wouldn't have noticed. Could there be something here? Soon, Bella finished the front massage and had Elijah turn over for the back. After about 10 minutes like this, Elijah felt as if his body had been revived. Standing up, he glanced around, his gaze finally settling on the coffee table. The coffee table was made of solid wood with a glazed stone slab on top, quite heavy. Before, he could barely lift it a bit. Grasping the narrow end, he exerted force, and the entire coffee table immediately lifted off the ground, nearly perpendicular to the floor. Bella was startled. When they had moved the coffee table before, both her husband and Elijah had struggled to lift and move it. Yet Elijah had just lifted it nearly vertically by himself. Clearly, carrying the corpse this morning had been so difficult. Feeling the explosive strength in his body, Elijah slowly returned the coffee table to its place. Fortunately, there was nothing on it. Otherwise, it would have been smashed to pieces just now. With his current physique, he should be able to catch up with the average athlete, right? Elijah thought to himself, and these changes had all occurred in less than a day. However, as time goes on, the increase in physique will become smaller, eventually reaching the limit of an awakened individual. What are you practicing? Your strength has increased so quickly. Bella looked at him with some curiosity. It wasn't just strength. His recovery speed had also noticeably increased. In such a short time, he had gone from being as lethargic as a salted fish to full of life. Do you want to learn? I can teach you. Bella's eyes lit up. Can I? Of course. This body forging technique not only strengthens the body, but also helps maintain a good figure. No matter how much you eat, you won't get fat because its only drawback is that it requires a lot of energy to practice. Elijah smiled warmly, but inwardly he thought some of the movements were quite complex and would need close guidance. Bella became even more eager. Let me demonstrate the first set of movements, and then you can practice along with me. Bella pursed her lips and began to carefully observe Elijah's movements. In truth, she didn't have a strong desire to learn. She just wanted something to keep herself busy. The sudden change today had left her on edge since morning. Only when she was busy could she briefly forget the screams of the zombies outside and the scenes of tragedy. But there's always an end to things. Accustomed to the fast-paced urban life, suddenly slowing down left her at a loss. Especially now, without electricity, most modern forms of entertainment were gone. She had to find something to do to distract herself. Soon, Elijah finished the first set of 8 movements, his face not flushed and no sign of breathlessness. Now it's your turn to try. Elijah looked at Bella. Bella recalled the movements, then slowly stepped forward with her slender legs, squatting slightly, her hands making circular motions in the air as she began to practice each move. Elijah watched eagerly. This woman had a different charm when she performed. Each movement exuded a unique beauty, especially between the bends and leg lifts. Chapter 7. Is there really no rescue coming? After Bella finished the first set of movements, her face was slightly flushed, not from exhaustion, but from feeling Elijah's intense gaze. How was it? Was it okay? Bella tried to suppress her embarrassment. Not bad. Your basic movements are almost there, but there are some subtle differences and gaps. Elijah approached and asked Bella to demonstrate the first movement. For example, here, while bending, you need to take a deep breath, adjust your center of gravity, and focus on engaging your thigh muscles. Elijah gently adjusted Bella's thighs with his hands and pointed out the muscles that should be engaged. Bella's face turned even redder, but seeing Elijah's serious expression, she bit her lip and made the corrections as he instructed. Very good. Elijah stood aside, observing the corrected movements, and instinctively rubbed his thumb and index finger together. He couldn't help but sigh inwardly. It was like peeling a boiled egg. The key to the previous movements is to focus on breathing and coordinate with the leg strength. Now, let's move on to transitioning to the second movement. Elijah instructed Bella to continue, and whenever she made a mistake, he immediately stepped in to correct her and point out the proper breathing technique. After completing all 8 movements, Bella was slightly sweaty. Elijah glanced outside. The sun had disappeared, and the sky was starting to darken. All right, let's stop here for today. It's getting dark outside. You can practice this first set of movements for the next couple of days until you've mastered them, and then I'll teach you the rest. Now, let's go cook dinner. Otherwise, we won't be able to see soon. Bella wasn't physically tired, but she felt hungry, so she went to the kitchen to cook. While she cooked, Elijah stretched his body. Feeling optimistic, he practiced the movements 2 more times. Not bad. The body strengthening is progressing quickly. At this rate, maybe the day after tomorrow I can go out, or at least clean the corridor. Elijah, he thought to himself. Though he felt he could go out tomorrow, for safety's sake, he decided to practice another day. For dinner, Bella made braised pork with potatoes. Knowing Elijah wouldn't be able to resist the meat, she decided to stew it all together, letting him enjoy it to the fullest. Bella, too, uncommonly ate 2 small bowls. Usually, she ate very little carbohydrate for dinner to maintain her figure. By the time they finished dinner, it was completely dark outside. Without the colorful neon lights and light pollution, the surroundings seemed particularly dark. I remember there's a candle in the TV cabinet. Let me light it up. While there's still water, you can go wash up, Elijah said. He rummaged through the TV cabinet in the dark. Fortunately, the change in lighting wasn't abrupt, and his eyes had already adapted to the darkness, allowing him to see the rough outlines. Soon, a small flame flickered in the living room, illuminating the room. I'll wash the dishes first. Bella remembered Elijah mentioning that there might be a water stoppage at night, so she washed the dishes first before returning to her room to freshen up. Elijah glanced outside. The sounds of the zombies had increased significantly. Compared to daytime, the night was the zombies' playground, and they became more restless. The human cries and wails were also more frequent. We need to hurry with the training. Elijah felt a sense of urgency and clenched his fists, continuing his training in the darkness. Bella finished freshening up quickly. Seeing Elijah so focused on training, she didn't disturb him. She placed the candle in the living room and slowly returned to her room. The candlelight illuminated Elijah, casting a long shadow. Time passed, and at some point, the candle extinguished. Elijah lost track of how many times he had practiced. All he knew was that his body was sore and weak, unable to exert any more strength, so he had to stop. Checking the time, it was almost 11 o'clock, and with his exhausted body, he made his way into the bathroom. After a night of practice, not only was his body sore and weak, but he was also covered in sweat. While there was still water, he needed to wash up quickly. Supporting himself, Elijah finished washing, changed his clothes, dried his hair, and finally crawled into bed, exhausted, quickly falling asleep. He slept soundly that night, not even dreaming for a second, a luxury in the past year of the apocalypse. When Elijah woke up again, the daylight was already bright. Glancing at the time, it was just past 7 o'clock. Feeling refreshed, Elijah stretched lazily, hearing a cacophony of cracking joints. His muscles were no longer sore, but instead, he felt an indescribable lightness. It was as if there was endless strength within his body. Reaching out to the bedside table, Elijah effortlessly lifted the weight of the cluttered cabinet, which weighed nearly 50 or 60 pounds. This lifted his spirits immensely. Before, he couldn't say he was weak, but he was only at the level of an average person. But now, he felt that his strength rivaled that of a weightlifter or boxing champion. Elijah's current physical fitness was almost at the limit achievable by normal humans. Continuing to train would push him into the realm of non-human strength, enhanced by the virus. Gurgle, gurgle, gurgle. Suddenly, his stomach rumbled like a drumbeat. Elijah's mood immediately soured as every cell in his body roared with hunger. Getting stronger came with a price, but it was a price he was willing to pay. Walking into the living room, Bella's door was still closed, indicating she hadn't woken up yet. Elijah had to make breakfast himself, so he went into the kitchen and heated up 2 packs of instant noodles. As for why he didn't cook, if things hadn't changed in the future, there would already be a water and gas shortage by now. After a simple breakfast, Elijah resumed his training. Today, he was determined to push beyond human limits. But as he started warming up, he saw a pale figure run into the kitchen. He couldn't help but stop his training, sighing inwardly as he watched. This woman, she's getting bolder and bolder. Does she really think I'm not a man? Bella didn't sleep well last night. Fear and confusion about the future kept her tossing and turning, with the occasional roar of zombies and the screams of humans in the darkness causing her to have continuous nightmares, often waking her up. It wasn't until early morning that she fell into a daze and slept again. When she woke up again, the sun was already high in the sky. It was quiet all around. If it weren't for the emptiness and the red bloodstains on the glass of the opposite building, she would have thought that everything from yesterday was just a nightmare. I almost forgot, last night I closed the windows to block out the noise from outside. No wonder it's so hot. Bella gradually woke up, feeling uncomfortable with the sweaty dampness on her body due to the stuffy environment inside. She struggled to get up and open the window, feeling the warm air rush in. Outside, the sun was shining brightly, but the neighborhood was empty, devoid of any signs of life. There were no more loud car horns, no bustling square dancing, no sound of children playing. Everything seemed so harmonious and quiet. Bella suddenly had a feeling as if she were the only one left in this world. Fear and panic surged in her heart. Fortunately, at that moment, there was a sudden ding from the neighboring living room. Bella instantly thought of one name, Elijah. A sense of joy surged in her heart, like a traveler in the desert finding an oasis. He was exercising. Bella felt a little relieved. She walked into the bathroom to prepare for a shower. But the next moment, she froze in place. The water stopped. She suddenly remembered what Elijah had said. I don't know when there will be rescue. With the power outage now, I guess the water and gas will soon be gone too. Bella immediately rushed to the kitchen, turned on the gas stove, but heard only the constant clicking of the ignition with no gas coming out. The gas has stopped too. A sharp question popped up involuntarily in her mind. Is there really no rescue coming? What's wrong? Elijah stopped his workout and stared straight at Bella, unable to help but mutter inwardly. This woman is getting bolder and bolder. Does she really think I'm not a man? Chapter 8. I'll wait for you to come back. Water and gas are both out. Bella pursed her lips, feeling her throat extremely dry. Luckily, she had prepared some water yesterday. It's all thanks to this man that I was prepared in advance. Bella glanced at Elijah and noticed his gaze was slightly strange, as if he was staring straight at her. Bella lowered her head slightly and realized her attire was inappropriate. Last night was too hot, so she changed her short-sleeved shirt to a silk camisole without wearing a bra. Bella's face flushed suddenly, and she immediately ran back to her room. Elijah watched the waves and flames in his heart, took a big gulp of water to suppress his impulse. Bella closed her room door and leaned against it, feeling a bit relieved. Just a bit too revealing. Bella looked at herself, a trace of shyness flashing across her face. But then she thought to herself, what's the big deal? It's not like I'm wearing a swimsuit. Screw it. She sat on the edge of the bed, took a sip of water, trying to comfort herself, but Elijah's burning gaze kept flashing through her mind. She had noticed before that Elijah would stare at her legs, but his gaze had been rather subtle then, unlike these past few days where he seemed completely unrestrained. With the arrival of the apocalypse, he seemed like a different person. Of course, it could also be because she didn't know him well enough before. Bella took a deep breath, walked into the bathroom, and used some of the water she had prepared yesterday to quickly clean herself up. After finishing her morning routine, Bella hesitated for a moment, then changed into a slightly loose pair of sweatpants, tidied herself up, and walked out of the room. Elijah was still exercising. Bella couldn't help but feel a bit self-conscious. Does he not like my outfit? Bella subconsciously thought to herself, feeling a hint of secret joy in her heart. Have you had breakfast? Bella asked him. I have. With the gas out, we can't cook anymore. Just have something light, Elijah said, finishing a set of golden elephant body forging technique exercises and taking a short break. What about later? The preserved food won't last forever. Bella looked worried. I'll go out tomorrow and see if I can collect anything useful, Elijah said. We still have plenty to eat. There's no need to go out so soon. Bella tried to dissuade him. What if he doesn't come back? I know, but we need more than just food. Right now, what we lack the most is water. Elijah paused and continued. Although we've stocked up some, I train every day, sweating a lot, and need a lot of water. The water we have at home won't last long for the both of us. Plus, I'm not acting recklessly. I plan to clean up the hallway first and lock the doors to the units downstairs. That way, at least this building will be safe. We can make a fire in the hallway later for cooking, which is safer than in the apartment and won't risk setting anything on fire. Without gas and electricity, there's always the most primitive method of chopping wood and making fire. But there are too many flammable materials in the room, and a little carelessness could cause a disaster. Elijah had seen entire buildings burn down due to indoor fires in his past life. It's much safer in the hallway, with iron stair railings and nothing flammable. Bella pursed her lips, her worried expression not diminishing, but she didn't say anything more. Also, don't just pour the water from washing down the drain in the future. Keep it for flushing the toilet, Elijah added. Apartment buildings have this downside. Once the water and power are cut off, the hardest part is using the toilet. If it can't be cleaned in time and the toilet gets blocked, the room will soon become uninhabitable. That's why most of the survivors gathered in areas near water sources, such as villas, low-rise buildings, or bungalows. In areas with towering skyscrapers, it became a paradise for zombies. Elijah had made plans early on. As long as he survived the viral outbreak period, he could go to the place he had already scoped out. There was water, electricity, and many rooms. As long as he controlled that place, he could quickly recruit people and expand his influence. Bella went to the kitchen to make herself some food, while Elijah continued his training. When Bella finished eating, she started practicing the movements she had learned yesterday. Elijah would also give pointers when he took breaks, but he couldn't help but feel a bit less motivated without seeing Bella's white, shapely thighs. Bella quickly grasped the tricks and performed the movements with finesse, but because she wasn't an awakened body, the effects weren't as pronounced. On the other hand, Elijah, after intense training, became even more powerful. Furniture like tables, chairs, coffee tables, and washing machines in the house were moved around by him, as if he were playing. A whole day passed quietly in the continuous cycle of training and rest. Although Bella had to take breaks twice to prepare meals for Elijah, which meant she didn't train for too long, she still felt incredibly tired. After dinner, she simply wiped herself down and quickly fell asleep in her room. The next morning, Bella woke up feeling more refreshed than ever before. Seems like it really works. At least I slept well. Bella felt joyful, but thinking about Elijah going out today made her feel a bit flustered and worried. As she left her room, she hesitated for a moment. In the end, she didn't wear sweatpants, but instead opted for the most comfortable shorts she had. In the living room, Elijah's eyes lit up when he saw Bella coming out. Under the sunlight, her slender legs were dazzling. Huh, shorts. On the third day of the apocalypse, Elijah still woke up early. Today he didn't rush to exercise, but instead had a hearty meal and began preparing to go out. He was still dressed in a combat jacket and jeans, with the magazines wrapped around his arms still intact. The long-handled umbrella was no longer suitable for him. It was too lightweight. But there were no better weapons available, so he had to make do with it. The sheep's horn hammer at his waist had been cleaned, and besides that, he also packed some other things that might come in handy. Things like ropes, fruit knives, and so on. Finally, he slung a large, empty backpack on his back, so if he could collect any supplies, he would have something to carry them in. Once he was fully dressed, Bella came out of her room. Are you getting ready to go out? Bella's eyes were initially evasive, but when she saw Elijah's attire, she immediately became concerned. Yes. Elijah glanced at her shorts and smiled brightly. You look very nice today. Bella blushed slightly and dare not look at him, stuttering, take care. I'll wait for you to come back. Don't worry, for your sake. I'll make sure to come back safely, too, Elijah said, then walked to the entrance door. He didn't rush to open the door, but instead looked through the peephole first. Alexander had caused quite a stir that day, and since he had run all the way back, it was difficult to say if there weren't any zombies following him. The peephole had limited visibility, but he could roughly see if there were any figures nearby the door. Once he confirmed there were no zombies outside, Elijah cautiously opened the door. Bella nervously watched his every move, relieved only when she saw there were no zombies outside. Instead of immediately closing the door, Elijah looked around first, ready to retreat if something seemed off. They were in a multi-story building, with 6 floors in total and no elevator. Each floor had 2 units, and they were on the 5th floor. Chapter 9. Zombie grass. The opposite door was tightly closed, and the 5th floor seemed temporarily safe. Elijah peered into the staircase, scanning up and down. There were no signs of anyone on the 4th floor, and there was no activity on the 6th floor either. He closed the door behind him to ensure the safety of their retreat route. Instead of heading downstairs, Elijah took the long-handled umbrella and slowly ascended the stairs, step by step, pointing upwards. The hallway was narrow, barely allowing for 2 people to pass side by side. If there were zombies upstairs, it would be difficult for ordinary people to evade them. Halfway up, Elijah leaned to check. Luckily, both units on the upper floor had their doors closed, and the hallway was empty except for a shoe rack. Elijah reached the 6th floor, confirmed there were no oversights, and then turned to descend. Descending was much safer. From his vantage point, Elijah could easily poke zombies with the long-handled umbrella. The 4th floor was safe, with both units' doors tightly shut. As he reached the 3rd floor, Elijah's expression hardened. A figure stood silently on the platform between the 2nd and 1st floors. A zombie? Elijah squinted, tapping the staircase railing lightly with the long-handled umbrella. Bang! The sudden noise broke the silence of the hallway. The zombie turned, seeing Elijah, and staggered towards him. Elijah stood still, watching as the zombie climbed halfway up the stairs before he suddenly exerted force. The umbrella blade slashed towards the zombie's head. Splat! The sound of bursting eyeballs resonated as the umbrella tip accurately pierced through the zombie's eye socket into its brain. Unfortunately, the umbrella wasn't powerful enough to penetrate deeper. If Elijah had a crowbar, he was confident he could have pierced the zombie's brain with a single blow. Nevertheless, the zombie, which had just been roaring and charging, immediately collapsed lifelessly. Without hesitation, Elijah ran to the unit door. The recent commotion might have attracted more zombies. However, it was too late. A zombie lunged at him. Elijah remained resolute, gauging the distance, thrusting the umbrella with his right hand. The zombie snapped its jaws, causing the umbrella to skew, piercing into its mouth. Despite the umbrella piercing through its body, the zombie didn't die. It continued to struggle, reaching out for Elijah. Elijah remained unfazed, swiftly stepping back 2 paces, withdrawing the umbrella, and wielding the sheep's horn hammer in his left hand. He smashed it down on the zombie's head as it lunged forward due to inertia. Splat! The powerful blow drove the sheep's horn hammer deep into the zombie's skull, splattering black-red blood and white-gray brain matter. The zombie lay motionless on the ground, its last twitches fading away. However, the crisis wasn't over. Following closely behind this zombie, 2 more zombies charged toward Elijah like rabid dogs. Why are there so many zombies at the door? Elijah didn't have time to think. He immediately ran back to the ground floor. The ground floor was 4 steps higher than the ground, creating some distance, allowing Elijah to have the upper hand. Without looking back, he relied on his skill, legs, and waist, swiftly turning around. The umbrella, like a lance, thrust towards the zombies following behind him. Splat! Successfully hitting the zombie's eye once again, it froze in place. But the other zombie didn't stop. It darted through the gap beside the immobilized one. Elijah lifted his foot and kicked, striking the zombie squarely in the chest, knocking it back and causing it to fall along with the one he had just killed. Elijah took 2 quick steps forward, holding the umbrella in his right hand. Seizing the opportunity while the last zombie was still struggling, he thrust the umbrella towards its head. Splat! The umbrella penetrated deep into its brain, and the zombie on the ground ceased struggling. Having dispatched 4 zombies in quick succession, even Elijah's enhanced body felt slightly winded. But it wasn't time to rest yet. Elijah looked towards the unit door, but this time, no zombies emerged. He briskly walked over, and there were no zombies directly in front of the door. After scanning left and right, he was startled. To the right of the unit door, adjacent to the ground floor balcony, 2 zombies were lingering there. Did they not hear the noise just now? Or, suddenly, his expression hardened. Then his face was filled with disbelief. That's below Elijah's building. The ground floor balcony had originally been landscaped with a green belt, but it had been modified by an elderly lady living on the first floor who fenced it off and planted vegetables. Amidst the lush lettuce, one plant stood out conspicuously. It was only about a foot tall, with 3 broad, leaves-bearing pale veins on their vibrant green surface, seemingly emitting a faint glow, giving it an eerie appearance. The 2 wandering zombies were gazing at this plant across the fence. No wonder there are so many zombies at the door, and now those 2 zombies don't want to leave either. Zombie grass. It truly appears when least expected. Zombie grass was a newly discovered miraculous plant in the post-apocalyptic world. Its function was simple. It had a certain probability of awakening superpowers in ordinary people without turning them into zombies. Mature zombie grass could even advance the abilities of those who awakened. Fortunately, Elijah happened to know the method to mature zombie grass. Elijah stared at the zombie grass, his eyes shining brighter than ever before. In the first year of the apocalypse, as humanity struggled to survive, a group of awakened individuals emerged, each possessing incredible abilities. They were no longer afraid of the viral mutations in the air. As long as they avoided being bitten by zombies, they could rely on their enhanced bodies and unique abilities to thrive in the apocalypse and gradually become leaders and elites among the survivors. Some people began investigating how to awaken superpowers. Soon, it was discovered that besides natural awakening and the rare few who survived being bitten by zombies, there were also a select few who awakened their abilities by consuming certain plants. Natural awakening was uncontrollable, and surviving a zombie bite was a slim chance at best. In contrast, the method of consuming these plants was much safer, and survivors fervently sought out these miraculous plants. Zombie grass was one of them. Zombie grass generally grows in areas where the stench of corpses gathers. How could it be here? Elijah was puzzled, but it didn't diminish the eagerness in his eyes, which shone brighter than when he saw Bella's smooth legs. I need to find a way to lure those 2 zombies over. Elijah didn't want to create too much noise, fearing it might attract more zombies and disrupt his harvesting of the zombie grass. He took out a coin from his pocket and lightly tossed it towards the 2 zombies. Ding! The crisp sound attracted the attention of the 2 zombies. When they saw Elijah, they immediately roared and lunged at him like mad dogs. Elijah stepped back 2 paces, retreating into the unit door, listening intently to the commotion outside, preparing himself. When the first zombie stuck its head through the door, Elijah thrust the umbrella precisely. Splat! The umbrella tip pierced straight into the zombie's brain. With the doorway being narrow, the second zombie also arrived but was blocked outside. Elijah pulled out the umbrella and thrust it again, hitting the zombie behind. Quickly dealing with the 2 zombies, Elijah dragged them into the building to prevent them from blocking the door. Then he cautiously stepped out of the building's entrance. It was silent outside, with no more signs of zombie activity. Bending down, Elijah approached beneath the ground floor balcony. The balcony was a little over a meter above the ground, creating a small shadow where the zombie grass was growing. Elijah dug the soil with a knife, preparing to take the zombie grass with its roots. Meanwhile, he observed his surroundings. Outside the fence lay a corpse, unmistakably Alexander, the one Elijah had thrown down earlier. Alexander's body had begun to decompose, emitting a peculiar stench. A faint yellowish stain flowed from his body into the soil of the greenbelt. So that's it, Elijah suddenly realized. He understood why the zombie grass was growing here. It was influenced by Alexander's corpse. This Alexander is truly my lucky star. Not only did he give me a corpse core, but he also nurtured a zombie grass for me. Elijah clicked his tongue. Although zombie grass often grew near corpses, it was usually found in places where corpses accumulated, not near individual bodies, making it quite rare. Thank you for your gift. I won't hold a grudge about what happened before, and I'll take good care of your wife from now on. Chapter 10. This task was like opening a box. Elijah really wanted to say, I'll take care of your wife for you, so don't worry. But considering they didn't have any children, he let it go. After all, there wasn't any major conflict between him and Alexander. They just found each other a bit irritating at times. Elijah heard from friends that Alexander's family was quite well off. He had several properties and shops in his hometown, which was probably why he married Bella. After all, Bella was considered a local beauty, and even in a metropolis like Neoville, she could make people say wow. However, both of them had lofty ambitions and didn't want to stay in a small town, so they came to Neoville City to try their luck. Later, they moved into Elijah's place through a friend's introduction. As they spent time together, Elijah found Alexander to be rather arrogant and self-righteous, always giving orders and thinking highly of himself. Moreover, he looked down on Elijah's small company's sales and had an attitude tinged with arrogance. Naturally, Elijah wasn't going to kiss up to him, so their relationship gradually became strained. If there was anything, Elijah would only communicate with Bella. Now that Alexander was dead and the debt settled, there wasn't much lingering conflict in Elijah's mind. Moreover, Alexander had given him so many gifts in death, so he could only take better care of Bella. Elijah emptied a nearby flower pot and buried the dug-up zombie grass in it before returning to the hallway and locking the unit door. Finally, Elijah could breathe a sigh of relief. He glanced at the 6 corpses strewn haphazardly in the hallway, set the zombie grass aside, and took out the hammer and knife to begin opening their skulls. This task was like opening a box. Even the survivors a year after the apocalypse hadn't figured out which zombies had corpse cores. However, they had roughly deduced a rule. Zombies that turned after awakening superpowers definitely had corpse cores, and they were of high quality. By comparing, it was highly likely that zombies with corpse cores, if they hadn't died initially, would have awakened superpowers. Therefore, some daring individuals tried eating corpse cores to awaken abilities, but without exception, they turned into zombies. Therefore, although people had discovered corpse cores early on, they hadn't paid much attention until the research on miraculous plants progressed. Elijah went through the skulls of all 6 corpses, and sure enough, he found a corpse core. Then, he took out the one he had extracted from Alexander's brain earlier and buried them together in the flower pot with the zombie grass. The zombie grass, which had been a bit withered due to transplantation, quickly perked up. The veins on its leaves became brighter, as if emitting light, and the density of the veins visibly increased. Yes, these miraculous plants, called spirit plants in the apocalypse, could grow rapidly by absorbing corpse cores. This discovery had been made by accident after various modern fertilization methods failed. Before Elijah's rebirth, it had just started to become popular. Originally, the unpopular corpse cores had suddenly become valuable. This time, only Elijah knew about these things, and it would be his trump card for self-improvement. Elijah threw the bodies of the 6 zombies out of the unit building, joining Alexander. When he was just reborn and didn't know he had already awakened, he had planned to clean up this building while piling up the corpses of the killed zombies in a shady spot of the building to see if there was a chance to nurture zombie grass and awaken his abilities through it. Now, not only was he spared the trouble of these operations, but he might also harvest a mature zombie grass. Elijah took one last look at Alexander before completely locking the unit door. "I'll take good care of your wife for you." Thinking of Bella, Elijah felt a surge of warmth in his heart. She had changed back into hot pants today, perhaps. Elijah hurried back with the zombie grass, feeling a bit impatient. Elijah paused when he reached the third floor, looking at the bloodstains on the floor. It's unclear if there are people in the other units of this building. It's not a good idea to directly break in and gather supplies. But this unit is definitely empty. Why not collect some supplies first? Otherwise, going out empty-handed and coming back would be a waste. Elijah hesitated for a moment, but soon sprang into action. He set the zombie grass aside and took out a piece of wire from his pocket, then proceeded to the house with the door closed and shoved the iron wire into the keyhole. Elijah's lockpicking skills were learned from a cheap master in his previous life who specialized in lockpicking. In the apocalypse, lockpicking was a valuable skill as brute force could easily attract zombies. Unfortunately, he wasn't very proficient, especially since he wasn't using professional tools. Nevertheless, after fiddling for a while, he managed to open the lock. Instead of immediately entering, Elijah observed the surroundings. The living room was empty, devoid of any signs of life. He deliberately tapped the door frame with the umbrella's tip, creating a sound. Bang! Bang! Faint zombie noises could be heard, not from this floor, but more likely from upstairs. Elijah waited for a moment, but no zombies emerged, so he entered the house. Rather than rushing to collect supplies, Elijah first checked every room inside and out to confirm the absence of zombies. Many exploration teams in his previous life had met their demise because they didn't notice concealed zombies in room corners. Elijah had learned from his mistakes. Once he confirmed the safety of the house, he closed the door and began searching for useful items. The layout of this unit was identical to Elijah's house. He searched the 2 bedrooms first, not expecting much, but stumbled upon some outdoor equipment on the master bedroom balcony. A backpack, hiking poles, and a portable camping stove. Elijah opened the backpack and found a bundle of nylon rope inside. There were also some emergency medication for inflammation and diarrhea, a solar power bank, a flashlight, binoculars, and more. Next, he picked up the hiking poles and tested them. They felt better than the umbrella, with sturdy shafts and metal bottoms. With a bit of polishing, they would make good self-defense weapons. Lastly, he took the portable camping stove, which looked like a mini gas stove with an additional compartment for installing gas canisters. He had seen others use it before, but had never tried it himself. However, the operation seemed simple, not much different from a household gas stove. Now, this will solve my urgent needs. I'll take it. Elijah happily packed these items into the backpack, then headed to the kitchen. He was pleasantly surprised to find that this unit not only had rice and noodles, but also a string of preserved meat, 2 packets of instant noodles, and some dried fungus, mushrooms, and ear mushrooms. As for the contents of the refrigerator, most of the fruits and vegetables were starting to rot, except for a bag of potatoes and some eggs. Elijah salvaged the items in good condition, along with other condiments, filling up another large bag. In the dining room, there were also some beverages, beer, white wine, dried fruits, and snacks, which Elijah didn't hesitate to collect. After filling his own bag and the hiking backpack, Elijah returned with bags of rice, noodles, oil, and half a bucket of water. Of course, he didn't forget the zombie grass. Carrying everything, totaling around 70 to 80 pounds, Elijah didn't find it difficult at all. With a few brisk steps, he ran back to the front door of the 5th-floor apartment. Meanwhile, Bella had been feeling increasingly anxious since Elijah left, especially after hearing the commotion downstairs and the sounds of zombies. She stood on the balcony, tried to observe, but due to the angle, she couldn't see what was happening downstairs or know how Elijah was doing. Soon, it quieted down outside, making Bella even more restless. She kept her eyes on the door, listening intently for any possible movement. But Elijah still hadn't returned. "He'll be fine. Surely he'll be fine," she said silently. If something really happened to Elijah, she couldn't imagine how she would cope alone. Bella paced nervously in the living room. It was hard to tell how much time had passed when suddenly she heard footsteps coming up the stairs. Thud, thud, thud. The heavy, powerful sound echoed until it reached the 5th floor, where it stopped.